Hi everyone. If you can see and hear me, please type in the chat box. As you can see today, we'll be talking about everything about the Ikigai. So I'd like to try and make it more interactive than usual. So if you have got any experience, you know about the Ikigai, you've got any experience with it, let us know in the chat room. And we can see how many of you guys actually know about this framework. And maybe, as you'll see here, maybe you know of Niketa seems to have a problem with something. Anyway, so there are two frameworks basically, and I'll explain both of them. Probably if you've heard of it or have come across it, you'll know about the more westernized version than the original Japanese one. But we'll go through and I'll try to explain how both of them work and how you can apply it for your own self-development and in your coaching practice as well. Hi, yes, hi everyone, San Diego. Great to see you, Estelle. Right, let's see what you guys will discover, hopefully discover today. And here's Pin from Hong Kong as well. Welcome, Pin. First of all, I'm just going to remind you why passion and purpose, having it, discovering it, and knowing what it is for both you and your clients are so important. Then I'm going to briefly explain what the Ikigai is. I'm going to talk about the Western Ikigai framework. I'm going to show you guys an idea of how to do the Ikigai on an Excel spreadsheet. Then we're going to look at how you can draft your own personal Ikigai canvas. I'm going to explain the Japanese Ikigai system, and you'll see that it's quite different from the Western version. Then we're going to look at a short, just a 9-item Ikigai survey that you can do yourself or have a client do to get an idea of how developed your Ikigai is. And then we're going to look at 5 conditions of the Ikigai, and finally 7 elements that form an Ikigai intervention. And throughout, I'll try and explain how you can use this in practice. Brendan, I'm glad you enjoy the work. Let me explain where it comes from. But first, we're going to quickly talk about passion and purpose and why it's important. Of course, your passion and your purpose are what motivate you to act. It's the stimulus for you to grow, because to grow and to do some behavior and action takes some effort. So you need to have some driving force behind it. It also gives you a reason to be resilient when you are going through challenging and hard times. And it gives you a sense of meaning and hope that the future will be better than today, that there's something better for you tomorrow and the days thereafter than what it is currently. It gives you a reason to change, because change is difficult and it's uncomfortable for most people. So it gives you a reason to actually do that. In the same breath, it gives you the accountability and the commitment to make effort into doing that change and doing that new habits and behaviors. It also creates harmony and balance in your life when it's aligned with your values, and we'll look at this a little bit further later on. You'll experience authenticity when it's congruent with your true identity. So what does this mean? When your passion and purpose are aligned with your identity, you'll feel more authentic and more genuine. And then if you take all of this into account, passion and purpose are actually the foundation of your client's forward movement and your own as well in terms of self-development. So what is the Ikigai? And now, Brendan, you'll see where it comes from. So it's a concept when you translated from Japanese, it means a reason for being. And essentially, they explain that Ikigai is the reason, the primary driving force to get you out of bed in the mornings. So Iki in Japanese means life, and Gai means value or worth. So it's the value you actually attach, the worth that you attach to your life. And when you combine the two, it's of course Ikigai. So the origin of this concept comes from a 1966 book by Miko Kamiya, a Japanese psychiatrist, and the book is called Ikigai Need Suite. And I don't know how many of you can read Japanese, but it is in Japanese. So more modern researchers have taken this book in the last couple of years, and they also built a Japanese-based framework around it, which of course they've translated so that everybody can use it. It's important to realize. Oh, okay, thank you, Chi. Chi says that the book, the translation of the title actually means on Ikigai. So that's very interesting. Thank you. So I should have actually, I've got some of these diagrams in Japanese. I should have displayed it here for your sake as well. So it's important to realize that instead of a grand concept, and you'll have a look at the diagrams, and it feels kind of grand, like you need to go very high level. And it's not the case at all. The Japanese tells us that a sum of many small joys in everyday life results in a more fulfilling life overall. So that's important to realize, and that's where we in the ABC framework comes with the big goal and the small steps, so that you can actually achieve it and consistently move forward, and not feeling like you're working towards something that you can never achieve. So I'm going to give you guys some time to look at this diagram. The next 4 slides will actually look at each of the circles separately. So it looks like there's a lot going on here. But if you look at the 4 corners of the circles and you start at the top, what you love. And then the circle next to it is what the world needs. Again, the bottom circle, what you can be paid for, and the left-hand one, what you are good at. So this is what I call the westernized Ikigai framework. Now, the Japanese is saying this is not, they not agreeing with this version, but I believe it is helpful for certain exercises. And as you can see, it contains aspects like profession and vocation, what you can be paid for. So it's actually very handy for you as a coach to help to set up your coaching practice, if I can put it like that. So let's say, for instance, you want to find your niche. Then you will look at each of these circles one at a time, and you will try to find where they all combine so that you can find your Ikigai right in the center where everything is balanced. So you see, if, for instance, the 3 circles at the top where they come together, it's delight and fullness, but no wealth, because it excludes the circle of what you can be paid for. Similarly, the right-hand circles, the top, bottom one, and the right-hand one, which excludes what you are good at. You feel excited and you may feel complacent, but you also feel uncertain because you're not yet good at that thing. So you know you've got to learn it, and it carries a risk, of course. Then if you look at the bottom 3 circles, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs, you have a certain feeling of comfort, but you also feel empty because you're being paid and the world needs what you're doing and you're good at it, but you don't love it. So that's a a comfortable position to be in, but not a very pleasant one. And then the last area where the three circles come together, what you love, what you're good at, and what you paid for, gives you a feeling of satisfaction, but also you may feel a little bit useless in a sense, because you're doing what you love, you paid for it, you're good at it, but the world doesn't necessarily need it. So let's look at each of the circles in isolation or separately. So we start with the top circle. So that's where I would suggest that you actually start with your clients or yourself as well. So you have a look at what you love to do. What puts a fire in your soul and gets you up in the morning and gives you hope for tomorrow. And you may have a feeling that the time actually just flies when you're doing these. So a good exercise would be to go and sit and list all the activities or all the things that you love to do. And as we'll see later on in the spreadsheet, you can also then give them each a score out of 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 or whatever range you would like to use. Yes, Marina, I think this is a great way of actually looking at your niche, because if you put this all together, you'll have a successful niche that the world actually needs and you can be paid for, and you'll enjoy what you're doing, and you know that you're either good at it or you know what to work toward to improve your competence. So let's look at what the world needs and what you love comes together. And that will then become your mission. So you want to do what you love and you want to do what the world needs. It's your mission that you are striving to do. Similarly, what you're good at and what you love, and that together is your passion. You just have to do these things because you love it and you're good at it. You may not necessarily be paid for it or what the world needs, but sometimes you probably think, what the heck? And we'll later on discuss the idea of it may be possible to do different things in different of these areas. And let me quickly just plant the seed in your head. So you may be doing something that you're good at, something that you paid for and that the world needs. You not necessarily love it, but it finances, it creates wealth for you so that you can invest that money in something that you love. And I think many of you would actually understand this concept, and it's maybe how you financed even this course to do what you love eventually. So the second circle, what you are good at. So here you can list your skills, you can list your abilities, all of that. What are you good? Ask yourself, what are you good at? What does people recognize you for? Just reading Brendan's first circle summary here. Yes, that's great, Brendan. Maybe I'll have you help writing this up for our coaching library. Do you not think that will be a great idea? Thanks, Frida. I'm glad that you find it helpful. Elke asked, when would you introduce the tool in a coaching session? You would probably, as I'll explain later on, this will probably, the whole exercise will probably, and you'll probably use the Japanese version. So it maybe, I estimated that it'll probably take 3 to 4 sessions. So you can either do it from right after the discovery session instead of the Wheel of Life. So you'll go about it a little bit differently, because as you'll see in the Japanese version, it can be a little bit similar to the Wheel of Life, actually, in a same regard. So it'll be actually be very nice to do that right away while you creating awareness for the client. So you also ask yourself, if we come back to what you are good at, we ask yourself, what do you get accolades for? What do other things think are your strengths? And where do you think you outperform your peers? And again, if you combine what you love with what you're good at and you do that, it's your passion. If you combine what you're good at and what you can be paid for together, it's your profession. So the third circle, what the world needs. So here you look at a more collective level, a level that is more in line with society, with humanity. What does the world need? What can make the world a better place? What will give humanity hope for the future? What will nourish people physically and mentally? And what do you think will move society forward? And this is probably where you can fit, if you hold that view, and I most certainly do, where you can probably fit coaching in, because I don't know how many of you guys agree, but I think the world needs coaching right now, and the next few years probably a lot more than at the moment. So again, if you combine what the world needs and doing what you love, it's your mission. And if you're doing what the world needs and what you can be paid for, that's a vocation. Mia is asking, what do you recommend when there are many areas that you get praise for? How do you narrow down to the most essential? So if you've got multiple areas where you get praise for, remember that you're going to have multiple things in each of these circles, and you've got to try and match that up. And you're going to try and find in each one of these circles, you're going to rate it and see what's the most important. And then you're going to focus on those that scored the highest or mean the most to you. So you're going to have a look at the various things, what you are good at. And then you're going to also match that with the various things, what you love. And they may not completely overlap. So if there's a thing that scores relatively high at what you're good at and what you love, that's probably the one thing that you're going to focus to work on then. Right, the fourth circle, what you can be paid for. So here you just simply sit down and you look at the demand from the market. What can you be paid to do? What has value to people? And this is monetary value, monetary power. What resources do people have? So you look at the environment that you're operating in, the networks that you're marketing or advertising in, and see what they are actually willing to pay. And then you can look at bartering as well, whether you can simply swap one resource for another, one that you need and one that the other person need. So again, the overlap between what the world needs and what you can be paid for, it's your vocation, and then what you are good at and what you can be paid for will be your profession. So here's a spreadsheet, and this contains some of the explanation that I already gave you. On the left-hand side, in the left-hand corner, in the left-hand column, you'll see skills, experience, and interests. So this is where you simply write everything that you like to do, that you love to do, and that you're good at. Skills, experience, interest, your passion, your activities that you really enjoy and love doing. Marina, I'm going to answer that question when we look at the Japanese version. Um, because it's not really, that version is not really about finding their passion and purpose. It's more about balancing their life and making your life more pleasurable. And it's all about self-actualization. So it actually brings together the passion and purpose, but in a slightly different sense. But we'll get there, I promise. So here, if we look at what I've written here on the right hand side, um, here in the first column, you just write everything down. You brainstorm by yourself or with somebody else, and you write everything down that you enjoy, um, or have significance to you, that you feel you're skilled in, have experience in, that you're interested in, and you write it all down. This is just examples that I got from the internet. So you see it, it's got all kinds of things like keeping dogs and like playing tennis. Um, and obviously, if you look at the scores this person have given, they're not a professional, because if you're a professional tennis player, people would actually pay. But anyway, it depends on your level in some of these things. So then you look at the middle four columns, and you start with the interest level. So you try and gauge how much interest you have in this subject or this activity that you've written down in the one column. So the example that I've got from the internet uses a 0 to 3. I'd probably use something like a 1 to 5. But 0, let's stay with 0 to 3 at the moment. So for 0 is absolutely no interest in this thing, which of course, as you can see here, won't be in that column because you've listed things on the left-hand side that you're actually interested in. And then number 3 is highly interested. So you've got a complete passion. If you can, you'll spend hours and hours on this activity and do it as much as possible. And it's something that keeps your attention and curiosity for time, that doesn't really subside. And absolutely time flies, and you're enjoying it so much when you do this. Yeah, Susan, I can't agree with you more. So again, if you look at the keeping dogs, and it depends on where you are and how you position yourself. I mean, we know there are people who make a business out of that as well. Then you move to the second column, and you look at your skill and your knowledge level, and be completely honest with yourself. I mean, these things are not set in stone. So if you've got a very high interest level, let's say in house renovation, and you feel you lack the skill and knowledge, then you can most certainly build this up. And the same probably applied for some of you in coaching. You had a very high interest level in coaching, but you haven't trained yet, you haven't done a program yet, and that's why you're doing this program, to move that level from a 0 or a 1 all the way up to a 3. So if you are a novice, it'll score a total novice, it'll score 0, beginner, intermediate, and if you're an expert, you'll score the 3. Then you move to the next column, and it is for need or usefulness. So needs, that this pertains to that one circle. So you think about what the world needs. Is this thing useful to people? And then you also score it from 0 to 3. 0, not useful at all. And 3, it will make a material difference to society or humanity on a larger and collective scale. And then you look at the fourth column, and you consider whether people would pay for this thing that you feel you're skilled in, experienced in, or have passion for. Yeah, Marina, I can actually, if you guys like, I can send you the spreadsheet as well. It's extremely simple, so it'll probably take you guys a minute or two to do the spreadsheet by yourself. And what I'll do as well is I'll send the presentation, I'll have it uploaded with the video file. So it'll be available as well. If you look at the last column, would people pay for it? So you try and gauge how likely is it that people would pay for this thing that you enjoy doing if you offered it as a service or a product. So not likely at all. It's just they won't pay for it. So if you don't play good tennis, for instance, nobody will pay for that unless it's a funny video on YouTube or something, and you can get monetary value that way. Or then a 3 for very likely. And then what's happened here in the total columns, it's just added all the way up. So for writing, it just added the 1 plus 1 plus 3 plus 3 to 8. And if you want to, at the end, you can just sort the whole table by the total column so that you get the highest one at the top, which will, in this case, be team building. And in the second one, making friends. So that will probably be somebody like an influencer or somebody doing social networking, social media marketing, advertising, that type of thing, or marketing of products. And then 3 languages and arbitration and mediation scored the 3rd and 4th. Now, if we simply look at an example here. So this person specifically had 3 things that they are highly interested in, but it didn't score too high. So either they would look at increasing the score somehow. So let's say you look at keeping dogs, for instance. It's scored at a very high interest level. Your skill and knowledge level, not that great. So you can probably improve there by doing some training, doing some courses, getting some experience in that regard to up your skill level to a 3. The need, usefulness, and would people pay? You can have a look at whether you can niche this further. So what does keeping dogs mean? I mean, there are areas in keeping dogs where you can actually, if you niche or segment it well enough, that it will have a higher score in the need, usefulness, and would people pay. For instance, if you start a training facility, a pet care day pet care facility, for instance, a kennel, even a dog hotel. That's another idea. So you can actually increase that score and get it to a 10, for instance, if you really want to work in that area. So this gives you a pretty good idea of where your gaps are as well and what you need to work on. And if it's, as I say, the need, usefulness, and would people pay, you can simply do more research and try and segment that area into a smaller, narrower area where people would actually pay for. So what do you guys think? Is this pretty useful for you? Yeah, keeping dogs won't be a niche necessarily in coaching, although I know of a person who's actually a coach doing very well, coaching people through grief that had loss of pets. So this is actually a great idea if you love dogs and you want to do a coach, how you can, with being very creative, how you can combine the two. And the demand's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So this is a great idea of how you can actually work and look creatively at a passion you have, and find something that you can do that is useful to people and that they will pay for. I'm just reading all of your wonderful comments here. And even if you love animals, one area that are growing as well, which you can probably combine with at least servicing or helping other people, is not being a dog therapist as such, but having trained dogs as therapy dogs. So you would take them with to lift people up, if I can put it like that. People do that nowadays more and more in hospitals and in care homes as well. Right, so here's another idea that you can use if you want to do this on a spreadsheet or on a large A3 sheet or something like that. So at the top is just your name, and I've called this a personal Ikigai canvas. So you can make it like a canvas board almost, put pictures, put doodles and graphs and images and drawings and so on this as well. Make it look really nice, perhaps on a wall somewhere, on a whiteboard. So name, date created, you fill in a date there to review, and we'll see later on. It's a great idea. This is a live thing to keep. So you won't do it once, you will review it every now and then to see if anything has changed. Maybe you upskilled some things, maybe the demand for certain things have changed, you've increased your knowledge, you know the market much better. And then if you want to, you can review it with someone, your coach, your supervisor, whoever you want to do it with. So this will actually also be nice to take into a coaching session, because it contains a lot of stuff that a client can actually work on in a session and outside of a session. I've got to love, you've got to love that, Michael. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I'm wondering what he's saying back to you. So in this example, you would just, hopefully you'll have more space to write or paste things or whatever you want to do. What do you enjoy? So that's where you list a couple of things that you really enjoy doing. What are you good at doing? What feels useful to you? What creates a sense of forward momentum for you, so you believe if you do something, it'll change your life for the better? How do you relate to others? So that's where you bring your role and your relationships in as well. What can you do for others? This is basically refers to what the world needs. Then if you've done all of that, you can have a look at what needs to change to improve your Ikigai. Now, if we look at the previous example, this is where you try and increase those total numbers that you found in the spreadsheet. So what do you need to do in one or more of these circles to change that number for a higher one? And then be specific. What actions can you take to do that? Make it small steps and make it adhere to the SMART criteria. And then also you can look at, and this is actually a good idea, I can add that here. What obstacles do you think can stand in your way of doing this, of achieving your actions to get a higher number? And what support would you need from anyone else in order to achieve that? Great, so now we go to the Japanese Ikigai system, and they are very adamant that this is the original 1966 version. that they've taken from that book titled On Ikigai, and they've put it in the same type of Venn diagram than the westernized version, but as you can see, it's very, very different. So you actually start with the top circle first. So if you do that for yourself or with a client, you'll start by looking at their values. Now you can do this through questioning. You can use the tool, the value tool that's in the library, that's got a whole list of values that can give the client an idea of what resonates the most with him or her. And then you can question these, explore these, get clarity. And this is, of course, to get you to know yourself as best as possible and know what your values are. And this is one of the core foundations of this version of the Ikigai, together with the presence and hopefulness that's at the bottom. So hopefulness refers to the belief that your life is moving forward to a better future. And it's moving forward from where you are now toward a better future. So you've got to know your values, and you've got to have this belief before you can actually move forward to get to self-actualization. So these are two very good things to work on with a client. In the values, as I said, you can do the value exercise with them and help them understand what exactly it is that they value, and where and how they express it in their life, and how they can change their life to be more in harmony with their values or express it better. And then the hopefulness part, this is where mindfulness comes in. So it's got two aspects actually. Presence is to develop a mindful attitude in the client or in yourself, and then a hopeful attitude for the future. So you can have the client visualize something in the future that they would really love to achieve, and a place that they would really love to be in. You can have them describe that place and how it feels like, and use as many senses as possible. So those are the two core foundations of the Japanese Ikigai. And then they've got the two circles on the side, which they call the sources of Ikigai. So after you've determined your values and where you would love to be in the future, you go and look at your work, your hobbies, and your interests. So this is, again, a little bit like the previous version of the Ikigai. You go and write down your work tasks, the hobbies that you enjoy doing, the interests, the things that you love doing. Write them down and see how congruent or not they are to where you want to go into the future, and to the values that you hold or that you want to hold. And then the same applies to your roles and relationships. So have a look at your whole social life, your family and your friends and your partner and all your relationships, and whether they are also, how they resonate with where you want to be and with your values. So this is why I listed here sources of Ikigai, the roles and relationships on the right-hand side, work, hobbies, and interests, the circle on the left-hand side. And you will experience the feeling of Ikigai, and that is the where the two large circles come together. So it's the larger of the overlaps. Life satisfaction, where work, hobbies, and interests come together with values. You have harmony and connection in your life when your values resonate or are aligned with your roles and relationships. You have purpose and gratitude when your roles and relationship relate to your presence and your hopefulness for the future, for a better future. And then where work, hobbies, and interests come together with presence and hopefulness, you'll experience creativity and transformation in your life. So these are the areas where the developers say that you will experience the perception or the awareness of your Ikigai. So of course, when more of these circles come together, you'll have even a deeper sense of Ikigai, and that's where you experience a much deeper personal expression of Ikigai. So this is where you'll find meaning in your life. You get to know your self-worth. You experience real growth in multiple areas in your life, and you have freedom to express yourself through your values in the present moment and in the future. So I think, and then of course, when everything comes together in one is where you find the top tier of self-actualization. You guys write so much, I've missed Michael's question. Yes, I agree. It's a good comment that you made here about the Western version would be a great thing for a client with an analytical personality and a very structured thought process, and maybe someone who's looking for career goals as well. I think that would be a good system to use. This is a little bit different, although it's a little bit, not a little bit more, it's a lot more holistic, the Japanese system. So you're going to actually go a lot deeper into a person's life and their whole life as well, where the Western version you can probably do in one session. This will, I guess, will take you 3 or 4 sessions. That'll actually be a great exercise to have a continuous 4 sessions to cover the whole Ikigai system with someone. What I'll do is I must just remember to do it. I'll save I think the chat is in any case saved. So what I'll ask our developer to see if they can put it in some kind of a text format and upload it for you guys as well, where the recording is kept. So that should work. Right, so the survey, which is actually, I found it on the same place, and there's a list of references that I used at the end of this with links as well that you can go and have a look. The survey is in, I think you not register, but you give your email address to one of the sites. It's Ikigai Tribe, I think it's at the top of the list. And then they send you a link to this survey that you can do. So it's got 9 items here that you rank from 1 to 5, 1 being does not apply to me at all. And number 5 applies a lot to me. The first item is, I believe that I've got some impact on someone. Then the second one is, my life is mentally rich and fulfilled. The third one is, I'm interested in many things. And what you do, if you guys want to quickly, those of you who can quickly count in your heads, you just simply count the scores. If you score a 1, you add a 1 to your total score until you get to the end. So the fourth one is, I feel that I'm contributing to someone or society. I would like to develop myself. I often feel that I'm happy. I think that my existence is needed by something or someone. I would like to learn something new or start something. And the final item is I have room in my mind to contemplate starting new things or developing myself and to think about future goals or the meaning of my life. So the maximum you can score here is 45, and they suggest a scoring for 40 or above, that you've got a very strong sense of Ikigai. 30 to 39 most of the time, and that's where, interestingly enough, I scored. Yes, I've got a button here to save it, Elke, so I'm gonna save it. As far as I know, it Zoom records or saves a lot of formats, including just an audio file, just a chat file, and a video file as well. So it should save, but I'm going to save it manually in any case too, so that we've got it. Then 10 to 19, you struggle to have a sense of Ikigai, and less than 10, that you've got little or no sense thereof. And I've posted the reference to the psychometric tool here at the bottom. So it's done in Tokyo at a university there. Right. So the 5 conditions of Ikigai. And at the bottom it says here, they consider it to be the art of staying young while growing old. And most of the research, as you'll see in one academic journal article at the end, they actually have done a lot of research among elderly people who are really finding joy in their life, working through stuff like this. So the 5 conditions is having hope for one's life, being aware of one's role in life, and I'll explain a little bit further each of these in the next slides. Being supported by a clear sense of values, not losing your sense of identity. So your identity actually becomes stronger here and not weaker in this process. You get much more clarity on your true or authentic identity. And you develop a strong nature that is able to overcome adversity. So have hope for your life. And they say that even if we don't feel any happiness in the present, if we have a sense for hope for something good to happen in the future, and we live each day with hope, our Ikigai is born. So this is very important to understand and to appreciate when you are going through a tough time in your life. That if you can manage to have a sense of hope for the future, you can still work with your Ikigai, and you will have a lot more resilience to get through the challenge of the moment. Be aware of your roles in life. So Ikigai is felt through the awareness of one's own indispensable existence in society, as well as through the awareness that one has a role to play in society. These perceptions give a high value to one's existence and a sense of pride that existence itself is a social contribution. So it means that you believe that purely by existing, you have a sense of meaning in life. And Jody, I agree with you guys. This shows that this version is indeed more existential. And I find it personally, I find it very uplifting and a source of great reflection as well. So the third condition is to live life true to your values. For the majority of people, the highest value in their lives and the strongest sense of purpose in life, their Ikigai, is experienced when they consistently live a meaningful life true to their value standards. So we're back to understanding, appreciating, knowing, and living your values and expressing it in your life in everything that you do. And that is one of the core foundations of self-actualization. The fourth one is find your true identity or know who you are. So it's strongly felt when one establishes his or her identity. Conversely, in the ups and downs of life, a lack of Ikigai is felt when one experiences an identity crisis. So even if it takes time, we all go through times where our identity may feel a little vulnerable, a little shaky, unsure. Um, just work on developing it in consistency and align with your values. The fifth condition, develop a strong nature able to overcome adversity. So along with the experience of joy, the experience of suffering also makes life worth living. When we encounter adversity, we endure suffering, challenge it, overcome it, and that is where our Ikigai comes from. Now, remember this when you go through troubling or difficult times. When we endure suffering and overcome it, that is where our self-actualization comes from. And I bet you guys you can get all of your self-reflection hours from this version of the Ikigai. Right, so elements of such an intervention, and these are all ideas that you can do yourself or you can do with a client as well, uh, if you like. And if they, of course, open to it and think that they would find it useful. So through this process, you're going to discover your values and your passion. And that is the first step that you're going to work on and do and explore. Then you're going to reflect on the current and desired competencies and habits. So you're going to look at discovering values and passion. And then you're going to look at the bottom circle, which is your hopefulness. And that determines where you would like to be in the future. And based on that gap, you're going to decide what the competencies and habits are that you've got to be able to develop. You're going to reflect on a possible future career. That's the left-hand side circle, your present and future social life, the right-hand circle. And remember, those are the sources of your Ikigai. You're going to write or visualize or reflect on your ideal future. Again, coming back to the hopefulness. And then you're going to start building specific goals, if-then plans, and you're going to break it down into action steps, and you're going to make it SMART goals, as I know all of you guys are very competent in doing already. And they say making public commitments to the goals set. So this is just to build your commitment, build your accountability, make sure that you stay accountable and remain on track. And remember, I said that this is not a fixed system, so it can change over time, and you should review it every now and again. I thought maybe once a year or so, seeing it as quite an exercise if you want to do the full Japanese version. The Western version, you can probably keep a little bit more dynamic if you want to use it for marketing purposes or to develop a niche or a business. You can just develop it as you go along. So the final slide. So it's a framework that facilitates self-reflection. And I think it's very, very strong in this regard. It's designed to lead to self-actualization. As I reminded you, staying young when you're growing old. The westernized model is simplified and aimed at balancing career and life purpose. It's dynamic and live and should be reviewed every now and then. And then I've added the fifth point here, just a very high level of idea of how I would use it with a client. So first explore their values and do it in depth. Go deep with them on their values, what it means to them, how they express it, which they feel, where they feel there are gaps, their strengths. So do that properly and understand it and have them understand their values and what it means to them 100%. Then you're going to develop feelings of hope. They have that the future will be better. So you look at how they see their future. You help them visualize it. You work on being mindful in the present moment as well. And then you will get to their big goal, which is their idea of where they would like to be in the future. You look at their work, hobbies, and interests at the moment and where they would like to be. And this is why I said it's a little bit like the Wheel of Life. So in numbers 3 and 4, you'll actually look at work, hobbies, and interests, where they are now and where they would like to be, where the gaps are, how it aligns to their future goals and their values, and the same with their roles and relationships. And then you're going to rank and match these with their values and goals so that you can find gaps and you can start to build goals and action steps to close those gaps. And I said that the process is completed over multiple sessions, and I thought it's about 3 to 4 sessions. So this is it for today. There are the references. If you want to go and have a look at one, I'd go to the top one, which is where the information for the Japanese version comes from, the ikigaitribe.com. And then probably the last one, if I could look at 2 of them, I would look at Stewart's article in the CEO magazine as well. So I hope you enjoyed the session today, and I hope you can find something to go and use in your practice. And I'd love to get feedback from you if you do. So please send me a message, either email or on the portal or wherever, and I'll enjoy reading that. And I'm going to save the chat now. See if I can save the chat. Yes. Yes, and I've got the chat saved on my computer. So I'll ask our developer to upload it together with the recording and the slides as well. So thank you all for joining. I really enjoyed the session today. And I hope to see you guys soon again in the school, in the exam panel, in your practice sessions, wherever. It was really fun. Thank you very much.